Police repression against demonstrations throughout Peru have left at least 7 dead and more than 30 injured. Regional governments expressed concern on the situation. The European Parliament dismissed Greek socialist Eva Kaili as vice president of the chamber for her alleged involvement in a corruption scheme. And China assures that the border situation with India is stable after New Delhi reported a clash on the border between troops of the two countries. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. According to data from the Ombudsman's Office, police repression against demonstrations in Peru have left at least 7 dead and more than 30 injured. Thousands of demonstrators continue to gather outside the Peruvian Congress, demanding the release of former President Pedro Castillo and his reinstatement as the head of state. In downtown Lima, demonstrators took Bancay Avenue, from where they demanded the closure of the Congress, a call for general elections, and a constituent assembly. In this context, the President, Dina Boluarte, announced that she will send to Congress a bill to hold early general elections in 2024, a move denounced by the former President Castillo. So far, 7 people have been confirmed dead, 6 in Andahuaylas and 1 in Arequipa. And the regional government in Puno region denounced the social and political crisis the country is going through while endorsing the popular demands for the closure of the Congress and the convening of a constituent assembly.
Statement: the regional authorities reject categorically the police repression against the right to protest undertaken by the people of deep Peru. We express our deep regret for the death of our young brothers and sisters of the Apurimac region. The value of life cannot be below political interests. The document states, the establishment of the Constituent Assembly to draft a new constitution that should allow us to refound our country. We consider that the removal of the President of the Republic, Pedro Castillo, has been illegal and irregular in relation to Peru's political constitution and due process. We ask the state authorities to address the just demands of the people, closure of the Congress, reinstatement of President Pedro Castillo, and early elections as soon as possible.
Now we move on to other topics. The Colombian Congress approved the creation of the Ministry of Equality and Equity. The bill passed the last 2 required debates, and the next step will be the reconciliation of the texts between the Chamber and the Senate and the signature of President Gustavo Petro. In the first debate, which took place in the House of Representatives, the proposal was approved with 139 votes in favor and only 8 against. In the Senate, the result was 61 positive votes and 6 negative. The new ministry, which aims to eliminate political, economic, and social inequalities, will be led by the Vice President, Francia Marquez. The Vice President celebrated the positive vote through her Twitter account, stating that all people deserve to live in peace with opportunity and a guarantee of rights, regardless of skin color.
The Ministry of Equality has been approved. Thank you very much to the government parties, to the coalition, to the Historic Pact, to the Speaker, to the Minister Alfonso Prada. Thank you very much to the Conservative Party, to the Radical Change Party that voted in favor of it, to the Liberal Party, to the Party of the Youth. Thank you very much to the Green Party, to the Green Alliance. Thank you very much to the Historic Pact.
In Colombia, this Tuesday, President Gustavo Petro approves the tax reform for equality and social justice, a historic debt with the most vulnerable. With this norm, the government plans to raise some $19.7 billion in 2023 and an average of $20 billion in the following 3 years. These resources will be destined, for the most part, to social investment, the fight against hunger and poverty, education, health, environmental protection, energy transition, and productive development. The government of Gustavo Petro also seeks to, with this measure, the sustainability of public finances. In Chile, the political parties announced on Monday night the signing of the so-called Agreement for Chile, which seeks to promote a new Chilean Magna Carta. The agreement establishes the steps to be followed by the new constitute process after more than 3 months of negotiations. Only the Republican Party, whose opposition is extreme right-wing, and the People's Party refused to sign the document. The presentation of the agreement for Chile was made in the library of the Old Congress in Santiago by the President of the Senate, Álvaro Elizalde, and the President of the Chamber of Deputies, Vlado Mirosevic. In Cuba, state and government agencies render an account of their performance today before the deputies during the second day of the 10th ordinary session of the National Assembly of the People's Power. The day's program includes the accountability of the Ministry of Communications and the Office of the Comptroller General of the Republic. The deputies will be briefed by Prime Minister Manuel Marrero on measures to fight crime, corruption, and illegalities, as well as the demographic situation of the country. As part of the legislative schedule, the deputies will submit to scrutiny the bills of the Comptroller General of the Republic and the system of superior control of public funds and administrative management. The approval of a legal regulation on expropriation for reasons of public utility or social interest is expected. In this same context, the President of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel Bermúdez, stressed the need to seek financial alternatives. Speaking in the debate, the President highlighted the need to take advantage of the potential offered by the laws to meet the population's food problems. Proposed seeking better land use, focus on local development strategies to produce food with the least possible expenditure of foreign exchange. He stressed that the need to depend less on imports in the midst of this economic siege that the United States has maintained for more than 6 decades against Cuba. Díaz-Canel expressed to the deputies that if the energy and food problems were solved, the expenditure of foreign currency needed to import other products will be reduced by more than half. Let's take a short break, but first, remember you can follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The European Parliament on Tuesday dismissed socialist Eva Kaili as vice president of the chamber for her alleged involvement in the corruption scheme. Eva Kaili was arrested in Belgium for her alleged involvement in a corruption scheme regarding the payment of bribes by Qatar to gain influence in political and economic decision-making in the European institution. The measure was backed by a large majority of members of parliament, with 625 votes in favor out of 628, 1 vote against, and 2 abstentions. After the vice president's dismissal, the plenary will have to decide who will take over in a second plenary session. In the United Kingdom, railroad workers begin a 4-day strike on Tuesday to demand a wage increase, which will bring this important means of transport to a near shutdown. The members of the Rail, Maritime and Transport Union will go on strike for 48 hours, a measure that will be repeated on Friday and Saturday. It is estimated that only 20% of the rail services will operate during this strike, which comes after the failure of the negotiations with the railroad company Network Rail. The strike coincides with the disruption that the heavy snowfall in the last few days has caused to different means of transportation in the country. There are to be strikes during the week in other sectors, such as the post office strike on Wednesday and on Thursday, while nurses will go on strike on Thursday. The Italian General Confederation of Labor called for strikes throughout the country during the week in the absence of answers to its demands for a 5.0% cut in the so-called wage, the difference between what consumers pay and what producers receive after taxes. The Secretary General of this union, Maurizio Landini, pointed out that the first region to mobilize this Monday will be Calabria, in the south of the country, and on Tuesday the strike will start in Sicily and Umbria. Landini explained that the need to continue the mobilizations became evident when, in the framework of a meeting held on December the 7th with the head of government, Giorgia Meloni, their demands were left unanswered. Other requests of the union refer to salary increases, as well as the repeal of the so-called Fornero law in force since 2011, which dealt a heavy blow to pensioners' incomes and raised the retirement age to 67 years. Reports in the United States noted that the acute homelessness crisis is a result of many deep-seated and ever-worsening economic, political, and social problems. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass declared a state of emergency on homelessness, calling it a sea change in how the city tackles the problem. She called for a single strategy to bring together government, the private sector, and other stakeholders to take and to handle uncontrolled homelessness on the country's second-largest city. Currently, there are over 40,000 homeless in the city, which, according to 2021 statistics, is home to about 3.85 million people. Homelessness has a long history in the U.S., reflecting the problems of wealth disparity and ineffective social governance. Now we move on to other topics. A moderately strong earthquake and two aftershocks hit Indonesia's resort island of Bali on Tuesday, causing panic but no immediate reports of damage or casualties. The United States Geological Survey said the magnitude 4.9 quake was centered 35 kilometers north of Amlapura, a city in Bali's Karangasem district. Its shallow depth of 9.6 kilometers caused people to run outside, including staff and patients of Karangasem Regional Hospital. Many residents and tourists rushed out of their homes and hotels towards higher ground, but the situation returned to normal after they received notifications saying the quake had no potential to trigger a tsunami. Indonesia is frequently struck by earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and tsunamis because of its location of the Ring of Fire, an arc of volcanoes and fault lines that rounds the Pacific. In China, the government begins relaxing its strict zero-COVID policy. As of Tuesday, people with light symptoms will be able to stay home rather than be sent to a quarantine center. Authorities stopped tracking some travel, reducing the probability of people being forced into quarantine for visiting COVID-19 hotspots. Despite that, China's international borders remain largely shut. This follows the government's announcement that it was ending many of the strictest measures. In Beijing and other cities, protests over the restrictions took place, showing a level of public dissent not seen in decades. The easing has also sparked concerns about a new wave of infections potentially overwhelming healthcare resources in some areas. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. China assures that the border situation with India is stable after New Delhi on Tuesday reported a clash on the border between troops of the two countries. At a press conference, the spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Beijing, Wang Wenbin, said that the current situation on the border is solid and the Indian side is expected to work with China to jointly maintain peace. These statements come after the Indian Defense Minister Rajnath Singh claimed on Tuesday that the troops of both nations clashed last week at the border that it separates them in Taiwan in the Himalayas. The Indian official also stressed that the Asian giant tried to unilaterally modify the status quo by invading the line of actual control and was obstructed by the Indian army.
As far as we know, the current situation on the China-India border is generally stable. The two sides have maintained open communication on border-related issues through both diplomatic and military channels. We hope that the Indian side will work with China to move in the same direction, to follow seriously the important consensus reached by the leaders of the two countries, strictly implement the spirit of the relevant agreement signed by the two sides and work with China to jointly maintain peace and tranquility of China-India border areas.
China on Tuesday advised its citizens in Afghanistan to leave the country as soon as possible following a coordinated attack by the Islamic State group in the previous day on a Chinese-owned hotel in the heart of Kabul.
The terrorist attack is egregious in nature and China is deeply shocked. We firmly oppose all forms of terrorism, strongly condemn the terrorist attack, express our condolence to the Afghan military police officers who were killed, and express our sympathy to the injured. After the incident, the Chinese embassy in Afghanistan has made serious representations to the Afghan interim government, asking the Afghan side to make every effort to search and rescue Chinese personnel, conduct a thorough investigation, severely punish the perpetrators, and effectively strengthen the protection of security and safety of Chinese citizens and institutions in Afghanistan.
The Islamic State group claimed responsibility for an attack on a hotel in central Kabul popular with Chinese nationals. Armed men opened fire on Monday inside the low-end hotel, and at least 3 of them were killed by security forces. Kabul's emergency hospital reported receiving 21 casualties, 18 injured, and 3 dead on arrival. Kabul police spokesperson Khalid Sidran said the attack took place around 2:30 p.m. local time, with residents in the area saying they heard powerful explosion followed by gunfire. The attack came a day after China's ambassador met the Afghan deputy foreign minister to discuss security-related matters and sought more attention on the protection of its embassy. In Palestine, Israeli occupation forces demolished on Tuesday 4 Palestinian-owned homes in Al-Jiftlik, a village north of the ancient city of Jericho. The Israeli authorities demolished the houses under the pretext that they were built in Area Z of the occupied West Bank, which is under full Israeli military rule. The head of the village council, Ahmad Abu Ghanem, told Wafa that soldiers accompanied by a bulldozer broke into the village and proceeded to demolish 4 houses, each of them between 120 and 150 square meters in size. All 4 houses were inhabited, he said, meaning that several families will be left homeless. On Tuesday, South Africa's parliament ruled on a report that the country's president, Cyril Ramaphosa, may have committed serious violations of the law. However, the head of state will not face impeachment as the report failed to receive enough votes. An ad hoc panel recently concluded that Ramaphosa may have committed serious legal violations, as well as misconduct in connection with a theft of money from his property. The event was the discovery of some $580,000 hidden in a furniture at the president's Fala Fala farm. The panel found that the president may have committed a serious violation of the Constitution, while Ramaphosa has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing in the matter. During a special sitting of the National Assembly earlier this Tuesday, 214 members voted against the report, while 148 supported its adoption and other 2 abstained. And just as the hearts of millions of fans live the emotions of the Qatar 2022 World Cup, TeleSUR joins this sporting event with From the Field, a show that brings news, analysis, reviews, and more to our audience. Don't miss it. Our show airs 1 p.m. local time in Caracas and 12 p.m. New York. Remember, From the Field, only on TeleSUR. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.